Hi, mining community. Welcome back to another episode of the Dig Deep, the Mining Podcast. And today's guest is Paolo Lostritto, who's the VP of Corporate Development for Sailfish Royalty Corp, who are a precious metals royalty and streaming company with two main assets in the Americas, a gold stream in Nicaragua and another project, a gold project in Nevada. Paolo has a rocks mechanic degree and spent his career in banking, investment, and the research side before moving into sort of executive management and he's on some boards as well. So he's here today to tell us more about Sailfish Royalty and what the future holds for the company. So that's welcome Paolo to the podcast. How you doing, Paolo?
Good morning, Rob. Thank you for having me.
No, and I appreciate your time as well. So, wondered if you can tell the audience a little bit about yourself, your background, your career. Obviously, I just covered just a snapshot, but I just wanted to give us a little bit more detail about your career, how that's developed to where you are today.
Absolutely. So, as you mentioned, I'm a rock mechanics engineer by training. I have worked in operations briefly at the beginning of my career. Worked out at a coal mine in northeastern BC before got sucked into the research side of things. So worked at Scotiabank, TD Bank, and then a number of small boutique firms. And my research arc covered everything from coal, steel, diamonds, base metals, but basically fell in love with gold back in the early 2000s when I started to understand its role in the financial markets.
Okay. So why don't you give us a overview of Sailfish Royalty?
Absolutely. So Sailfish Royalty is a classic royalty company that holds a number of royalty assets in its portfolio. Its main principal backer is Wexford, that is based out of Connecticut. It's a private equity group out of Connecticut. It is very much a vehicle that is now starting to come into its own with its flagship asset being the royalty, 3% NSR royalty on the San Albino asset in Nicaragua that declared commercial production earlier this year. That asset is effectively the highest grade open pit mine in the world. And whilst it's only producing about 40,000 ounces a year, there is lots of room for that royalty to grow as a function of both the drill bit, because it's an Archean gold system, classic kind of Canadian shield thing, even though it's in Nicaragua. So it should have plenty of exploration upside. And in addition to that, there's room for it to grow from the standpoint of doubling the throughput from 400 tons a day to 1,000 tons a day. Okay.
Wondered if you could just tell us about describe the sort of growth potential at San Albino Royalty.
Effectively, it's a lot like the Canadian shield in that you're looking at these mesothermal systems that go as far as you can drill them, and they're structurally controlled. And so whilst the mine plan as it stands right now defines roughly a 5-year horizon, the expectation is that that mine plan is going to expand through the drill bit over the course of the next, call it 15 to 20 odd years as they drill that deposit out. With the company generating free cash flow starting, I believe, in May, June of this year, that we should see a larger dedication of those flow of funds to drilling out and expanding the mine plan.
How does your sort of Spring Valley royalty fit into the company's strategy?
Absolutely. So Spring Valley is nearly 5 million ounces in both M&I and inferred resources. The asset is owned by Waterton. We're of the belief that Waterton is trying to monetize that asset. And once that asset is in the hands of a public company, we believe that the market will gain a better appreciation for what the production potential of that asset may look like. So there's no official figures out there, but with a 5 million ounce resource and a potential large heap leach operation in Nevada, we believe that our royalty is going to re-rate that information gets released into the market.
You may have covered some of this, but I wonder if you can give us a sort of financial update for Sailfish royalty and maybe some future projections.
Absolutely. So currently have about $3.8 million in cash. We have loans receivable of over $4 million. So company's in good financial position in that regard. We have no debt. We're generating approximately $400,000 to $500,000 a quarter in cash, and we're paying one of the highest dividends in the royalty space, over 4% yield. And as mentioned earlier, we believe that there's quite a bit of opportunity for growth in that cash flow profile as San Albino ramps up and as we get better clarity on the Spring Valley asset.
In terms of obviously looking at other companies that you would like to obviously be part of and have a royalty streaming on a particular company or project, is there certain attributes that you look for, whether it's an asset, whether it's a company? Is there sort of set criteria that you look for in an asset or company?
Well, as is the case with most royalty companies, most groups are focused on cash flow because the royalty space has this great ability to raise capital at kind of 15 to 25 times cash flow. And it's very inexpensive capital, and deploy that into a market whereby the cost of capital is much higher for some of these developing assets. But like most royalty companies out there, we're looking for assets that are at cash flow or near cash flow. We're looking for assets that have good geological potential to grow and potential for production growth. But first and foremost, we're very opportunistic. We're very much focused on the financial aspects of doing our homework and making sure we reduce the risk profile for our shareholders.
Yeah. I was just going to say, is there any sort of focus on jurisdiction that you're looking for? Obviously, you're in obviously in the Americas. Are you looking outside of the Americas, or is there any particular jurisdiction within the Americas that you're sort of focusing on at the moment in terms of acquiring new assets?
At the moment, we're looking at 2 assets in North America, but you know, the idea is you're always looking at the best return on a risk-adjusted basis. And so it's just easier to assess the risk profile in the Americas given our team.
Got you, yeah. And I wondered if you can tell us a little bit about your team.
Absolutely. So our chairman is Akiba Leisman, who actually is an engineer, but also has spent the majority of his career on Wall Street as a portfolio manager at a number of companies, worked at Red Kite and at Wexford. Cesar Gonzalez, also a financial guru in terms of his connections on Wall Street. And both have spent a lot of time, energy, and effort building out the portfolio of the Wexford group of companies, including Mako, including Sailfish, and Bonterra as well. We've got great access to technical expertise. A gentleman by the name of Dr. Matt Gray, who operates out of Tucson here, is a fantastic geologist and does wonderful work for the team.
Since 2019, the company's been buying shares in the market through several normal course issue of bids. I wonder if you can just give us an update on that.
Yeah, so we are large shareholders as well. The people that are involved with the company were large shareholders, and we felt that the shares were severely undervalued. And so as a result, we put in place a normal course issuer bid to take advantage of the fact that the market was mispricing the underlying shares. It should be noted that with a yield at 4%, that we continue to believe that it's the highest yielding royalty company in the space, and that's a huge opportunity for shareholders to benefit both from the yield, but also the potential for production growth, and gives you great leverage and exposure to the gold price, which I think is going to do very well in 2022.
Yeah, fingers crossed with that. Sailfish announced a new silver spin-out called Swordfish Silver. I wonder if you can give us an update on that.
Absolutely. So it's announced a binding LOI. It's effectively a three-way deal whereby we're creating a new silver vehicle called Swordfish Silver. That new vehicle will have approximately 48 million ounces silver equivalent in two projects. One project is in southeastern Arizona in Cochise County, called Commonwealth Silver. And the second asset is in Mexico, called Gavilanes. Combined, as I mentioned, it's got 48 million ounces of silver equivalent. We think that we should be able to double, if not triple, the resource in 18 months' time, and make quite a bit of money for shareholders. So Sailfish shareholders will receive shares dividended out as a part of that spin-out, and should benefit from that new vehicle.
And are you focusing more on gold than silver, or it really depends on the particular projects that you're assessing?
At Swordfish or at Sailfish?
Either and both.
Okay. So I guess the right answer is it's precious metal focused and wherever we can make money.
Yeah, understand. And as a conclusion, I just wanted to give us I suppose an outlook over the next 12 to 18 months for both companies. What you're sort of aiming to achieve.
So what you now have is a vehicle that's generating quite a bit of cash flow. It now has exit velocity in that it's now self-sustaining, and is able to use that free cash flow to both return a good portion of that capital to shareholders, but also opportunistically grow the business. And so what we would say to shareholders and potential shareholders is that the vehicle now has the required exit velocity to grow the company from its current market cap to something substantially larger. In addition to that, it holds one of the crown jewel asset in the Spring Valley asset, and we hope that data comes to the forefront over the course of the next 18 months.
Yeah. Paolo, really appreciate your time in give us an overview of the company and what you're looking to do. It's obviously exciting times moving forward, and obviously wish you well in your success. If our audience wants to reach out to you, if they've got any questions, how can they go about doing that? And are you across any sort of social media platforms?
Absolutely. So I am on Twitter. I believe it's P Lostritto on Twitter, and then just contact the company. Happy to answer any questions, and talk to shareholders or potential shareholders at any time. Yeah,
no worries. Appreciate your time. Audience, hope you enjoyed that. Appreciate if you can share and like this episode. If you're watching it on the YouTube channel, appreciate if you can share and like this episode, and so it goes out to all corners of the universe. And those are listening on the podcast, as I always ask, if you can sort of pass this episode on to other people within the industry, and also just as you're speaking to other colleagues, wherever you are around the world, just mention Dig Deep, the mining podcast, and try and get your friends and other colleagues to sort of sign up and start listening to some of these episodes. And obviously just have a great one here around obviously the royalty space in precious metals. So really appreciate your time for listening, and until next time, happy mining.